This episode is sponsored by Fostering UK, one of the UK's premier fostering agencies. If you've listened to this podcast for a while, you will know that we do not promote things lightly. If we talk about it, it's because we genuinely believe in it. And this one's personal. Louise actually fosters for them. After years of difficult experiences elsewhere, particularly around poor support and lack of real therapeutic understanding for the children in her care, she transferred to Fostering UK, and they do exactly what they say they do. And that's rare in our sector. They are therapeutic foster care specialists. The support is real, the training high quality, the matching is thoughtful, and the relationships feel human, not corporate. They focus on quality, proper therapeutic training, minimal placement breakdowns, and genuinely putting carers and children and families first. So whether you're completely new to fostering or you are an experienced carer feeling unsupported and thinking about transferring, this could be very, very, very different for you. If you'd like a personal introduction, you can email us at sarahanderson@fosterwiki.com or louise@louise-allen.com. Right, let's get into this episode. Welcome everybody to Foster Care Uncovered, episode 16. Can't believe we're at episode 16. Nick, what about you, Louise?
I'm in shock that we ever got to episode 2, yet alone 16, and up in the numbers now, Sarah.
Yeah,
18,000 downloads.
Yeah, it's started crept over that now.
Wow,
Yeah.
insane. That's incredible.
Yeah, totally incredible. I'm talking to you on the preamble before we press record. Seems that you've turned into a bit of a teenager this week. You're going, moo.
I've been hanging out with them. That's why I've been looking after quite, because I've got two young women who neither of them are with occupation at the moment. One is not at school and the other is waiting to go to the next part of her apprenticeship. And I've been hanging out with the girls from Spark Sisterhood. So I've been talking about sex, I've been talking about relationships, I've been talking about burgers, I've been talking about TikTok, and they've had such an impact on me. I actually sulked and stropped out in front of my husband and came back and laughed.
That's so funny.
Louise. I've been hanging out with the girls. So yeah, I've got to stop talking to more adults.
Well, don't look in my direction for that. Well, let's get started then. As always, we have a sort of newsy bits to start with, and this is a very general newsy bit. I've invented a new word this week.
What is it?
Care washing.
Care washing, not
yes,
hair washing.
Because I've noticed there is a massive increase in this. There was recently a meeting in Parliament. I think it was with the National Association of Fostering Providers, who's the IFA's club, if you like, and an IFA and, care leavers. I don't know many. I think there was one foster care there and a foster child. Not sure how appropriate that was, taking a child to that, but hey ho. But it's the whole thing smacked of this care washing to me. And let me explain what I mean by this. Because I've been noticing more and more as foster carers start to find their voice. And really start to speak up about what's wrong and why outcomes for the children are so poor. So, if you'll have heard of greenwashing. It's look it up if you haven't. It's where companies like oil companies and things talk a lot about sustainability of the environment. Well, of course, they're still carrying on behind the scenes doing the same damaging stuff they've always done, but they're looking virtuous. It's all about looking good. So they don't have to change anything. Yeah. So care washing feels the same in our world. It's when the organisation, politicians, definitely politicians, parts of the care sector, they kind of wrap themselves up in the language of care, putting the children first, improving outcomes, listening to care experience, listening to care leavers, the voice of the child, and I think the current minister said, I always start from the point of view of the child, So that so much of this care watching goes on. But underneath, nothing shifts. The system stays the same, and so do the outcomes. If they were all so marvelous and putting the child first and have now elevated that discussion even more, if that was the case, then why are we still leaving care? They are disproportionately filling the prisons, the mental health sectors, the homeless, and sadly, with the highest rates of dying by suicide. So once you start seeing it, you'll see it everywhere. Polished statements, I know, carefully worded reports, the kind of, and corporate word salads, as I like to call them. They sound really reassuring, don't they? But they don't mean anything.
Yeah.
Consultants love that, don't they? Let's baffle them with a whole load of stuff about how much we care about the children. They are so far removed from the children that it's just insulting and patronizing to the children in our care, to the care leavers, that they use them in this way. I'm not saying everybody does, but my goodness, this is rife, especially at the moment. I think also we can't ignore the other uncomfortable truth that how often do these phrases get used to shut down conversations or advocacy or carers saying we need to do this or we need to do how often as a carer or a social worker, I hear it from social workers, we're just acting in the children's best interests. Sounds right. Of course it does. But it's just used to justify poor decisions, avoid scrutiny, not take the blame, hold on to control. And of course, again, it's just using the language of children for own personal and organizational agendas. And we have to call it out every time and stop this going on, because while they do that, they're pretending it's all fine. And that's the problem, is it shuts down the conversation, ignores the real risks and harms within the system itself. And actually, it stops us getting to the truth, doesn't it, about why children in care and have such dismal, desperate outcomes. And perhaps that's the place they should start. Perhaps they should start, instead of all this care washing, at the place of, we've been doing this 20 years and we haven't managed to impact one outcome for children. In fact, it's getting worse.
Yeah, but the
Maybe they
truth,
could start there with honesty. So what do you think?
well,
Have you seen it?
I see it every day. I hear it every day, and it's vomitous, isn't it? The truth doesn't get people votes. You could say yes to both sides and somewhere in the middle, I guess. I personally find it incredibly unhelpful and deeply patronizing, and I'm sick to death of platitudes. So are the children. I mean, I was hanging out with all the girls this week, and it's been hilarious. But they're not stupid. If ever I say to them, I use a particular language, they're sitting there with their phones. They look up and go, "Hello, you've been on one of them training courses, have you, Lou?" And I'm like, "Oh, I have." Now I sound like an idiot. Authenticity and the truth will do every single time.
Every single time. And of course, you're absolutely right. I mean, I spent 16 years, didn't I, with teenagers
Yeah, of
fostering, and they sniff out inauthenticity in a flash.
course they
Sometimes,
do.
and word salads and patronizing, literally they can spot it a mile off. And in actual fact, I would say one of the effects of trauma and growing up too early, all those things impact on that deep sensitivity to that inauthenticity. They really, really can spot it a mile off.
It's survival.
Yeah, yeah, and you won't know that more than most. So everybody look out for care washing. Because, and just put, every time you see it, repost a post and put hashtag care washing,
That's what
because
I
until
do.
we call them out and stop them doing it, I think in all honesty, LinkedIn is really bad for that, don't you think?
Yes, but it's marketing, isn't it? It's PR. It's a LinkedIn, love it dearly, is PR and marketing. So we tend to sanitize, and Facebook also, because if you say any word that Facebook doesn't like, it tells you off and it asks you to rewrite it. So there's censorship everywhere. Maybe that's just me, but there's censorship everywhere. And I think as the years go on, I get more and more, and I will be honest here, fed up, really fed up and insulted with people that have never walked in our shoes having an opinion and talking about the work we do or the feelings we have. Because, my friends, that is called bullying.
Yeah, and also it's not helpful because we are run by people who have never done the job. And we are told how to do the job by people who have never done the job. We are told what the job's like and what affects us and what doesn't affect us and what support we need by people who have never done the job. So we are told, in fact, by the government, it is not a job.
Oh yeah,
By
what
people
you
who have
don't
never
know
done
what
the
it
job.
is.
So
I have no idea what I'm doing. Obviously, I have no idea. It feels like a lot
oh,
of work to me, but it's not a job. It's definitely not a calling.
oh, you're not working. No, you're only
Working.
sitting watching the telly with your children. How can you call that work? So anyway, shall we move on?
Yes, we better had.
So, massive topic this week, and we've decided it's going to be two podcasts. It might even be three because Louise and I are always going over time, and we are determined to keep the podcast shorter because they're just rambling on too long. Trouble is, so much to say, isn't there? So, we wanted to talk about mental health this week. So, it was a quick introduction. This has been one of my background is psychotherapy, and I came up through after my degree, I came up through placements in the NHS and then a job in the NHS, working in child and adolescent mental health for many, many years. And it's what led me to foster, actually. But so this is my area, but I knew myself the deep impact of fostering on your mental health. Now, this isn't about not being resilient. Can we just put that out there first? And also, don't forget that carers that come into care are deeply and thoroughly and utterly assessed. If there's any hint of a mental health crisis or issue, they don't get through. So everything that happens to a carer's mental health after they start fostering is as a direct result of the impact of all the things we're going to speak about on them and a lack of acknowledgement and support in that. So it is a huge, huge issue. For me, it sits right at the center of everything. And, people don't come into it struggling. What I say, it is the system and the trauma and all those things we're going to discuss. So it is also the system. This is happening within what's widely acknowledged as a broken system. One where carers have few rights, climate of fear. 85% of carers say they feel fear allegations in some way in their daily work every day, not the ones that have just got allegations, everybody. So imagine the impact of that, and this, as I say, let's get that right out of the way, straight off the bat, this thing about resilience. Oh, you need to be more resilient. Should we just ditch that now? Because it really makes me fed up. Because fostering isn't just parenting and that we're not being resilient enough parents. It's consistent emotional labor. It's secondary trauma, navigating systems, professionals, birth families, and lots of uncertainty and lots of insecurity all at once. But unlike others in children's services, carers aren't given the same level of psychological support, or they don't even recognise it. You think about others in children's services, often you'll find a social worker's gone off sick with stress for 6 months, and fully paid and fully supported for their mental health. Now, why do they think that social workers get it, but we don't? But we'll come to all that later, of course. So, what happens? Carers stay quiet. They say they're fine. That's your nice one. Fine, even when they're not, because speaking up feels risky. And in our system, there's little protection really in all of that. So, what do you think, Louise, before we go on to the first section?
Well, yeah, mental health, and it's interesting because when we talked about it, it's a huge one, it's a massive one. But I think what sits underneath all this is something we don't say out loud. Foster carers aren't just doing a role because we're not allowed to call it a job or career or profession. So we're doing a role. We're paying other people's pain every single day. And that's not something you can clock in and clock out of. It lives in our bodies. It sits on in our kitchen table. It wakes us up at 3 a.m., quite literally, hearing crying, screaming, desperate sounds of trauma. And you have to be a foster carer to know what that means.
Absolutely.
Start. Children just don't go to bed and go to sleep. Lovely, lovely, lovely. You can have children pacing about the house all night, crying, banging their heads against the wall. You wouldn't expect a paramedic to bring their patients home, would you? Or a therapist to live with their caseload? But foster carers, that's exactly what we do. So when we talk about mental health, we're not talking about weakness or coping skills. We're talking about what happens when a human being holds this much for this long, often without any safe place to put it down. And maybe the question isn't, are carers resilient enough? Maybe the question we ought to be asking is, why are they having to be this resilient in the first place?
Yep. I like that. I like that a lot. And I love your analogy about the ambulance and all the rest of it. It's absolutely spot on. And I think before we go into the first mental health risks, I'd like to say that basically children need, what do children need? A secure, stable base, don't they? And if
Yep.
they don't have a secure, stable base, then, you know, the outcomes are not going to be good enough. And we can only provide them with that secure, stable base if we feel stable and secure ourselves. And it all boils down to that. So it's absolutely, mental health isn't a nice to have. It's fundamental to everything that we do. And one of the biggest problems that we have in foster care for foster carers leaving, and we will come into that now, and also for not recommending. And don't forget retention. Oh, guess what? The government has suddenly had the light bulbs gone on. It's as though they invented the phrase recruitment's all about retention. Oh, been banging your head against the wall for 10 years. So, so what are the mental health risks for foster carers? We'll take these one each here. So, big one, secondary traumatic stress. So let's start with something many carers experience, often without even realizing it. Secondary traumatic stress is when being closely attuned to the trauma children carry begins to affect your own mental health. It's about being constantly exposed to their fear, their pain, their suffering, their trauma. And over time, this takes its toll, especially as carers. It doesn't bounce off carers, they're like sponges. That's because they really, really care, or they wouldn't be doing it in the first place. And if they are doing it without taking it in, then either good on them, or perhaps they shouldn't be doing it. It's a questionable one, that, or they've got the right support in place. So this constant exposure to trauma can lead to exhaustion, heightened strain. I love this quote by Charles Figley. We've got a few quotes in here as well. Carers often send them to me, actually, and this was sent to me by somebody in West Sussex. By Charles Figley. There is a cost to caring. Professionals who listen to stories of fear, pain, and suffering may feel similar fear, pain, and suffering because they care. Sometimes we are losing our own sense of self to those who we serve.
Yes.
Powerful, isn't it?
Yeah.
Um, I think what happened to me was being a trained psychotherapist. I knew it was happening. I could feel it was happening. And we'll come to the sort of signs to look out for when you know this is happening, because a lot of carers won't even be aware of this and will feel awful things and wonder why,
Yeah.
apart from just exhaustion.
And sometimes it's not obvious, is it? It's not
Mm,
always a big emotional moment. Sometimes it's just you're feeling more tired than you used to, less patient, a bit numb, or suddenly overwhelmed by something small. It's like your nervous system is quietly carrying stories that were never yours, but your body doesn't know what to do with that.
mm.
And unlike other professions, you don't get to debrief and go home. You are home.
Gosh, wow. Yeah, let that sink in. That's powerful. Right, next one, compassion fatigue. And we will be talking about what what impacts these and creates these things in the next section. Compassion fatigue. Over to you, Louise.
Closely related is fashion fatigue. Yeah. Let me think. Compassion fatigue. Wow. And this is a bit that can bring a lot of shame because you think, I chose this, I care. So why do I feel like it? I've nothing left to give. I have nothing. I am empty, but I chose to do this. So there you have the big guilt right there.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
compassion fatigue isn't a failure of caring. It's actually evidence of how deeply you've been caring for a long time without enough care coming back the other way. No one cares about you while you're doing this. And when
Mm,
you're at home on your own, dealing with, and every foster carer will absolutely get this, nothing's coming back for you. You are
yeah,
giving, 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 giving. And here's something we don't say enough. Sometimes it's not the children that exhaust us the most. It's the systems around
mm,
them that are
mm.
actually exhausting us and wearing us down and demoralizing us. It's the meetings, the emails, the reports, the constant advocating, the feeling of having to prove what you already know.
The
You could,
fear. Yeah,
yeah, you can spend an hour regulating a child. We've done that, haven't we? We've
yeah.
all done that. And then 3 hours trying to get someone to listen about what the child actually needs. And that's the bit that drains you because you're not just caring, you're fighting to care properly. So when people talk about block care, compassion fatigue, it's not because carers have stopped caring. That's guilt. That's don't put that on us. We
No.
don't need that. It's often because we're overwhelmed, unheard, and running on empty from battling a system that should be supporting us but isn't.
Yeah. I absolutely, absolutely. And it's the old saying, you can't pour from an empty cup. And I think compassion fatigue is probably one of the most shaming things you can have, because already it's called compassion fatigue. It's everything that here is sort of late. You're labeled something. Oh, you don't care anymore. And actually, compassion fatigue is a numbness. And I've had it at times where I've sort of something's become so overwhelming, you just go, oh, I don't think I care anymore. And then the shame washes over you. You think, oh, I'm a terrible person. I just don't
Yes.
care anymore. Oh my God, what am I saying? Why am I so numb? Why am I so awful? Why am I and the guilt and the shame, it's it's such a system set up to make us feel
Well, it's at
shamed
that,
or
and
guilty.
it's at that point it becomes incredibly dangerous for the child. The child we know is traumatized. Of course, they're traumatized. They just went through the whole process of coming into care. That's
Mm.
traumatic enough. But it's when you find yourself, and I'm finding this more and more and more, and I wonder if our fellow foster carers can hear this as well, is that I talk to social workers, I sit in meetings with managers, and no one, every time we present an issue, it's like the first time they've ever come across it. What is that about? And because we've been doing this a while, you build a vocabulary, you store knowledge about the very systems that you're operating in. And sometimes you think, I know more what is going on than you do in your own bureaucratic chaos. But we sit in meetings again and again where a child presents something that they've never seen or heard before. How can this be so?
Well, I
And that
agree. Yeah.
kills you. And that is the worst of all of it. And it's like compassion fatigue is the bit where if you're not careful, The children get blamed. The 28-day notice is put in and on they go. And that's sheerly because the foster carers are exhausted with fighting and advocating. If you are a professional listening to this, you know this is true too. You know it is true. So come on, what can we do?
Yeah, well, we're coming to that next week, aren't we, about this? We're going to be about what can we do next week.
Absolutely brilliant. Can't
So
wait.
yeah, compassion fatigue, numbness, just blocked care. I think sometimes people say, especially in those adoption kind of, passing children on for adoption. They've had the child 3 years and they say, oh, well, they pass them on for adoption. Not even that, but some transitions and things where carers are like, oh, well, it's my job and I get it and all the rest of it. I honestly think that comes from a bit of compassion fatigue as well, because they're so resigned to the fact that that's how it's going to be, that they hold back right from the beginning so they don't get too attached. And imagine that. That's because if they were that attached, it would be breaking their heart that the children are moving on. So, imagine putting that on a carer as well, that they feel they can't get too attached to the child or show the child attachment, because then it's, harder to let go. And don't forget what happens when a child moves on, whichever way they move on, and you cry or you show any kind of emotion, you're told that you're not
Oh,
resilient enough, you're over emotional,
yeah.
and like one of
Overprotective is
like
what
one
we're
of our
called.
team always says, why aren't you more emotional?
Yeah.
Why is the system not more emotional? Maybe the whole collective system has unconscious compassion fatigue.
Yes. Good point, Sarah. Absolutely nailed it there.
Yep. And
Yeah.
because I don't believe any social worker stepped into social work to to not care or to do those transitions or do it, they
No.
they just they just get compassion fatigue just as much as carers do, I think. Blocked care. Right, on to so depression. Depression is another serious risk, and it's more than feeling sad. It affects mood, thinking, behavior, and of course, physical health. We know that. Um, and of course, they say, oh, recognize the signs of depression early and speak to your GP. Well, that then, which carer does that? I know carers that go private to get anti-stress,
Yeah.
anti-anxiety meds or things, and make sure it's on their files. And that is what the system's driving.
Mm,
It's underground.
mm,
How healthy is that? Not.
mm.
I think the C.S. Lewis quote, this is one somebody sent as well. Mental pain is less dramatic than physical pain, but it's more common and also harder to bear. The frequent attempt to conceal mental pain increases the burden. It is easier to say my tooth is aching than to say my heart is broken.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
Oh my gosh.
that's C.S. Lewis. He wrote Alice, didn't he?
Yes, he did. And I think for
Easier to
carers,
say I've got a toothache to say my heart is broken.
oh, don't,
In
don't,
children's care.
don't, don't. It's oh, come on. And
Ugh.
I think for carers, depression can hide behind functionality as well. You're still getting everyone to school, still making dinner,
Mm,
still showing up to meetings, still smiling. So from the outside, it can look like you're coping. And I think we're all good at that.
yeah.
But inside, things can feel heavy, flat, and disconnected. It's like you're moving through treacle, but still expected to smile and say everything's fine. Because they like it when they say they haven't seen you for a month, they say, hello, how are you? Is everything okay with you? Of course we go, oh, it's fine.
Fine.
I don't want to get into a conversation with you about how awful I feel. I don't want to get in conversation with myself about how awful I feel because I don't know what to do with it. Because in fostering, saying I'm struggling can really feel like you're actually saying, I'm not good enough. And
And
that's so
actually, yeah, that sums it up, because also when you express that, Louise, they say you're not good enough.
yes.
So, rather than manage the situation, they standards of care that you're not coping is much
Mhm.
easier to, because also, what does that do? It deflects the blame from them. Oh, it's not that we haven't supported you, it's your fault. So, anxiety. Anxiety is another constant companion for many foster carers, I think. It can start out small anxiety, but this is really my area as well. It can really interfere with everyday life badly. And also, I speak from personal experience here, having suffered from anxiety all my life. It can escalate to panic attacks, insomnia, physical issues. We'll go into more of the issues later on, but that quote, that Swedish proverb says, worry often gives a small thing a big shadow. And,
Right.
you know, that constant feeling of anxiety in your chest, which can manifest into panic attacks. So many people go through that in silence.
Yes, they do. And anxiety in fostering isn't irrational, is it?
No.
It makes sense. If a teacher has a difficult day, they go home. If a social worker has a tough case, they close the file at some point.
Mm.
But foster carers live inside this uncertainty day in, day out. One phone call can change everything. One allegation, one decision, one meeting. Of course, your body is on alert. We're on the same alert as the children who are coming in. How unhealthy is that? That's not us being too anxious. That's our nervous systems trying to keep us safe in an environment that often doesn't feel safe at all.
Right. Well,
Does it?
no, it's again down to that, secure base, isn't it?
Yeah.
It absolutely is down to that secure base. And I wouldn't mind that people say, oh, you're not resilient, or just get rid of the ones that we've affected or whatever. If the outcomes for those leaving care, remember, foster care is only as good as its care leavers.
Mhm.
If the outcomes were okay, you'd say, oh, well, maybe, but they are
Yeah.
desperate, desperate, desperate. And they're not improving. They're getting worse each year. This one I'm going to talk about now, and we'll do things like neurodiversity and stuff later on. But this is a big one, and this is will be a new to a lot of people. But we've been raising this issue. It's actually came through our campaigns manager, who managed Noah's campaign, and is still doing it. Is moral distress. Now, moral distress is something, it's the feeling when you know what's right for a child, but the system prevents you from doing it, and you watch it all unfold in front of you in a catastrophic way that is damaging to the child, and you can't do anything about it, but you want to. That is moral distress. So, we've seen this time after time after time, support or experiencing harmful decisions. It just leads to feelings of frustration, helplessness, conflict, and big thing for retirement or resignation, this one. So it's not a mental health condition in itself, but of course it contributes to anxiety, depression, burnout, all of those things. Now, I think this is best understood through a foster carer's lens here. So we're going to play out this. Have you got anything to say about morbid distress before I go on with
I do only a little
yeah.
bit. I've heard Nikki's voice note as well, which is brilliant. But for me, this is one of the deepest wounds in fostering, if I'm honest. It's not just that things are hard, it's when you know what a child's needs are. You can feel it in every part of you, can't you? It's in
Yeah.
every part of you, and you're not allowed to give it. You're in your home, you know what to do. People who have probably never met the child are preventing you from reaching to that child and helping them because of some obscure reason. And you're not allowed to give it. Remember that. Imagine that whole feeling. You're not allowed to give it. Imagine being a nurse who knows the treatment but isn't allowed to administer it, or a teacher who sees a child struggling but isn't allowed to help. That tension doesn't just frustrate you, it erodes you. And I have felt that it erodes you because fostering isn't just practical, it's moral, it's relational, it's human. And when those things are in conflict, it can leave you feeling like you're betraying either the child or yourself.
Yeah, well said. Absolutely. And I think what we'll do now is we'll play out to the break with a voice note sent in to us by a foster carer about her moral distress. And after the break, we'll come back and we'll be discussing the factors that affect foster carers' mental health. So don't go away anywhere. Listen to this very poignant voice message, and we'll see you after the break.
We loved our foster children deeply. We cared for them day and night, through fear, through grief, through some of the most confusing and difficult moments of their lives. We didn't just care, we lived it 24 hours a day. And as we were asked, we recorded it and we managed it. And still we were forced to stand by while decisions were made that didn't protect them. Children from our care were moved like parcels, with little thought to their mental health or their grief or the meaning that they would make of being moved again and again. Children don't see systems, they see people. They feel loss and they feel abandonment. And when we spoke up, we were told we were too emotional, told to move on, to be more resilient. But my question is, resilient to what? Being part of harm to a child we were asked to care for, because the caring doesn't just stop. And what does it say about a system where the people who care are seen as a problem and the harm to the children isn't? We were told to know our place, but we did morally know our place. Our place was with the children we had cared for, in relationship, in safety, in love. And when those relationships are broken, it doesn't just end, it stays in the child's body, in their mind, in their future. And it stays with us too. Because what's left for foster carers is moral distress. The trauma of loving a child and knowing what they need and being powerless to protect them in a role that is deeply emotional with almost no emotional support. Carrying that changes you. It keeps you awake at night and it does shape your mental health. So the question for those who tell us, who told me and who told my husband that we are too emotional is, why aren't you emotional? Because if we can't feel for children, we shouldn't be making decisions for them. And that isn't weakness. It isn't about resilience. It's about the damage caused when care is overruled and the people who feel it most are told to stay silent.
This is an advertisement for FosterWiki Support Plus, the premier support services for foster carers by foster carers. This isn't generic support as you know it. It's real backing from experienced carers who understand the job, the pressure, the responsibility, the isolation, and who stand alongside you professionally. And here's what carers absolutely love. Many of the top-rated national foster carers qualifications are included free in membership, and others are heavily discounted. They're not tick box courses, they're nationally recognised and can count towards accreditation. So if you want to be an accredited foster carer, this is a powerful place to start. We offer them because we believe foster carers deserve professional standing, recognition in teams around their children, in being informed, educated and confident. So support, qualifications, accreditation, go to fosterwiki.com and click on FosterWiki Support Services to join. Honestly, for just $6.99 a month, you can change your fostering world and have backup you never dreamed possible. Welcome back, everybody. Louise and I having a little dance in the interval. Ice cream, chalk ice. So, okay, that was a bit of levity after that very it's so difficult to talk about all of this. So let's get into the factors that affect foster carers' mental health. We know what the outcomes can be in terms of compassion fatigue and secondary traumatic stress disorder. So let's have a look at what affects carers. So number one, numero uno, exposure to trauma. Louise, do you want to take that one away?
And this is a tricky part, isn't it? It doesn't always always arrive as a story. Sometimes it's behavior, silence, aggression, withdrawal. So you're not just hearing trauma, you're living alongside its impact every day. And unlike most roles, because we haven't got a job or whatever, we've got a role, that's all I can come up with. There's no off shift, there's no downtime, no handover, no stepping away, just you holding it again and again and again. And I think this is where carers hold an incredible tension. You're asked to see the behavior and the trauma behind it while still managing the impact of that behavior on your home, your family, your own capacity. That's not just parenting. There's a that's a therapeutic work, crisis management and emotional translation. Forget that. Don't forget that. Emotional translation. We are having to decode everything that we see. Is that this? Is it that? Is it because? All rolled into one, usually on a very, very, very poor amount of sleep. That's what I think working alongside trauma is.
Yeah, absolutely. And they start to tell you these stories, these horrendous, awful, terrible, terrible stories about what's happened to them. Unimaginable. Carers will know what I'm talking about. I always say to friends who say, "Oh, tell us," and I say, "I can't say anything to you, but think of the worst and then times it by 10." Because also with you, with county lines and all the rest of it, and the things you've been through with your young people, and me too, it's far worse than you think. Now, so what you do is you listen to these things for nights and nights and nights on end, and you're tired because you've not got enough sleep, and then you feel so overwhelmingly sad, so sad that these things could happen to these young people. So it makes you cry. If you've got any feelings, you just can't, because you imagine it happening, you visualize it in your mind, you think, "Oh, I wish I was there to rescue them at that point. They had to go through all those years of that terrible stuff and nobody was there for them." So all of this goes round in your mind over and over and over. You play it out all day long. And if you don't have help with mental health and how to process that, you should have, we're going to go into that next week, that kind of, supervision or counseling, therapy or whatever, to process it. It just stays in your own head. And we all know when things stay in your own head, where they go. They go internally, physically, mentally. And that sadness, that overwhelming sadness that the world is such a cruel place and that you couldn't help, because by then you're pretty much, you love quite many of them. You really, nurture them. And to think that they've been through that breaks your heart. And that, for me, is part of the exposure to trauma and the effect it has on you.
Yes, I can agree more, and it's and you don't you don't harden to it. We were both looked after numbers of children, and every story does break your heart. And I have my own stories, and I was challenged that I might be suffering from secondary trauma. And I've never felt really that. I feel I hold their trauma. But what I worry for are the foster carers who come into this work, maybe experience primary trauma, who never knew that the world could be this bleak for children. It is such a shock when you realize that perhaps the worldview you had of family, of children, the moral view you had means nothing. And you have to reframe everything without any help, without any guidance. You just hope you have the capacity to go on that journey and rethink everything, because everything you thought you knew about the world, about people, and about childhood goes out the window as you reframe a whole new world where you try and accommodate a child. And when I sit on the edge of the bed holding a child, crying because of what's happened to them, I don't get secondary trauma. I'm just so sad that people can be this hideous. And then I fight and fight and fight for that child to get as much protection to start their healing from a system that is broken. Then that's when I get secondary trauma, because I'm trying to do right by them in a system that's constantly looking at money.
Yeah, that's very, very true. I mean, I think also I'd like to point out that, there's me, myself and you, we have these different. I agree with everything you said. You agree that, we all come from different places, but everybody's own version of taking on that trauma is different. And of course, that comes from our own frame of reference. And I think not to forget as well that many people that are in do foster care, they haven't had there are very few that have had gilded, gifted, lovely lives with not a hope, not a care in the world. In fact, I'm not so sure those people make great carers.
I
Most
agree.
carers come in, I had the most terrible misspent youth. I had it was difficult mental health as a teenager, all those things I think contribute to you being a good carer, but you still, so many of us have some kind of trauma, or lots of carers have some kind of trauma in their past themselves. Maybe not as acute as the trauma you experienced, but certainly there's something there. And so our own frame of reference, which means how we're brought up, with big melting pots of individual things that make us who we are. And trauma can tap into any of those things at different times. Let me just give you a little list here. I just jotted down a quick list of the ways that the things we're going to be talking about can affect you, because it's not the obvious things, but so it can cause excessive fear, worry, or anxiety. I'm going to read this out so I don't miss anything. Excessive fear, worry, or anxiety, tired all the time, feeling hopeless or powerless, thinking about giving up fostering, long-lasting sadness or feeling overwhelmed, high and low moods, socially withdrawing, inability to sleep, eating more or less than usual, tearful, panic attacks, feeling guilty, feeling shame, sore back, sore neck. That's a big one physically.
Yeah, yeah,
Compromised immune system. You get more colds and snivels and things.
yeah,
Imposter syndrome, doubting your own skills or talents, fidgeting, unable to keep still or be still, an inability to feel empathy, obsessing, apathy. That's another one. That's that compassion fatigue thing, and constant frustration. So just keep that list in mind, because some people say, oh, it is not affecting me, but may just tap into some of those things. And if it is tapping into those things, it's okay to say, yeah, it does affect me. That's what we have to point out, isn't it? It's okay, everybody, to say, yes, it does affect me, because that's the first stage to us all working towards a safer, secure base for ourselves, so we can give
could
it to
not
the
agree
kids.
more. And I think someone has to start it. Someone has to boldly say, not that I'm not coping, but I am really struggling with the weight.
It's hurting me.
Weight. Yes, it's a pain. It's hurting
Mm.
your soul, and it's that moral damage. And as I said, I think it's one of the most corrosive parts of this work.
Yep.
And I
So,
want I
yeah,
want
go
your
on, you.
professional advice,
Mm.
Sarah, about, and I think this happens a lot to foster carers. It's about how young people project and transfer their trauma onto us, and sometimes social workers do it to us as well. What do you say about that?
Massive. That is absolutely massive. Projection is, it was originally invented or named by Freud, actually,
Mm,
projection and transference. And what it means is, in projection, is that in our world, what it means is they can't really they can't really have a go at, let's put it in really simple terms, they can't have a go or behave the way they need to, or show the people that need to hear it how they're feeling, because those people, it's often intergenerational trauma, isn't it? If it's a parent, they're often those children themselves way
mm,
back, and they don't have the capacity to understand or listen. But when a child is reaching out and they get a blank, blanked from that kind of experience in a parental reparation, that's not possible. So what they do is, in simple terms, they take it out on you, or they project that onto you. So you're not loving them enough, you're not meeting their needs, you're not being kind enough, you're not giving them what they want, you're not then that's a big one, you're not making them part of the family. It's because very often you hear that, someone say, oh, you're not making, they don't feel part of the family. Well, honestly, I held my hand up there and said, if there are foster carers that are not making them feel properly, then they shouldn't be fostering. I'm not
Absolutely.
defending them, but a lot of us know that we couldn't be more welcoming, loving, holding, bringing things, and they still feel they're not. That's because they aren't in the family they want to be in. They want to be their
Yes.
own family.
And
So
I
that
think
is projection. They will project that. It's basically children projecting their feelings from past experience onto their foster carers, and that will be anger, grief, fear aimed at somebody else can appear directed at you, even
yeah,
when you've done nothing. And a lot of allegations, of course, stem from projection and transference.
absolutely. And this is where we need our fellow foster carers to feel more confident about mirroring that back in meetings and showing your knowledge, because you need to remind people, professionals, that this is what is going on
Yes.
a lot of the time.
Unfortunately, professionals do it as well to us.
Yes, I've noticed in the past.
So, we get a lot of projection onto us about various things. And of course, it is important to raise, but we must raise it collectively, because if single carers raise it, they'll just put the standards of care on you, saying you don't understand what you've done, what
Go
you've
and do
done.
training.
Yeah. So
Training.
that actually also that taps into that, how difficult the working with traumatized children are, because of course that trauma shows up as transference or projection, but it shows up in behavior, it shows up physically, emotionally, sometimes the unpredictability of a child being like something literally 1 minute and the opposite the next. And those daily behavioral challenges are so constant in our lives and lead to that stress and burnout. But projection and transference, who speaks about it? Nobody, but it's massive.
I think it's key. It's key. I want to talk about, I'm mindful of time and we're trying to be good. I want to talk about, the sense of loss about children and grief. It's something that we all do because, we don't have a job. This is a role, whatever, none of us, someone tell us what we are and what we do. But children come and go, and some for a short period of time, some for years, and then they go. And there's something quite unnatural about loving a child and then being expected to let them go, often without ceremony, without acknowledgement. And I've done that. I looked after a child for 8 years, and the social worker wouldn't hang out when I was by the front door to wait for me to say goodbye. I was coming back from contact with another child. I never said goodbye to a child that I had looked after for 8 years. No one brings a casserole for a foster carer, do they, after your child has gone? There's no thank you for loving this child moment. There's no real appreciation. You just tidy the room and carry on, but your body will always remember that grief because we're told it's just your job. Oh, it's a job now, is it? Okay.
Are you being over emotional? Wow. Why aren't you more emotional?
Yeah, and I think it's important that no one else is, I love dogs. I have to get myself off Facebook groups for rescue dogs, otherwise I'd have more dogs than people. But I hear the outpouring of grief from foster care people who foster dogs. I am not allowed to talk about with children, and it does make me question a lot of stuff, I can tell you.
Yeah, because isn't it interesting? Yes, it's a job then, it's work. And you shouldn't be so emotional. And yet at the same time, we're sent on courses to learn about attachment. It's very, very bizarre. That's loss, grief, and guilt are huge, a huge thing. Please, everybody who's listening, please write into us, because this is something we can continue with thoughts from carers and everything. It's such a big subject. So thinking about time, self-neglect. Hey, there's a big one. So carers focus, I think, so much on children's needs that they neglect their own health, physical and emotional. And it's so interesting when you see You know, all those people who tell us how to relax but don't do our job and have never done it.
Yeah, I really love them.
How many people can genuinely sit around in a bath with scented candles? How many people, also meditation, how many people can sit there and be mindful about their thinking when a trillion things are running through their brain uncontrollably about every child they've got, fostering the system, that it's just overwhelming. Calming your mind, you know, that's, or go for a nice long walk. What would you want to come around and mind the children while I do? You know, it's like this sort of this kind of, oh, do some yoga. It's like, nah. The ideas, we'll come into the solutions next week about what I think self-care is, but you just, and these two sections are quite intertwined, really, self-neglect and the strain on relationships. And because we don't have enough time either for our own relationships. Our birth children often get, well, sidelined, to be honest, which is pretty bad. And so do our other halves, if we're in partnerships. And I think that we don't nurture them enough because we don't have the time or the space. Let's face it, after a day with a week of fostering, you don't exactly leap out of bed wanting to give to everybody else as well. And it can put a real strain. And so self-care as well. Self-care, we're going to talk about that next week.
I'll tell you
Self-care is literally, it's nowhere. And also another thing as well, if you can you imagine saying the supervision now, I really think I need to look after myself a bit more. Boop, boop. Red flag time.
I was walking through a high street.
Suddenly you're not work and shouldn't be so emotional. Suddenly you're being, you know, too
you can't win
selfish, or you can't win. What do you think about this?
Well,
neglect and relationships.
I was walking through the high street with a fellow foster care. We're going to have a coffee, and there was someone shaking a charity, shaking a tin at us, and doing the whole big emotional thing about why we should part of our money. And she just turned around and said, I'm a foster carer. I give enough already. And walked off. And I went, woohoo! Go, girl. Yeah. But, yes, absolutely. Do we, I don't think that, and sometimes the people closest to us carry it too, don't they? Our children, our pets, our partners, the tension, the unpredictability, the emotional weight. And you can end up feeling quite alone, even in a full house, because not many people really understand what it's like, what is, asked of us. Not many people do. And how do you have those conversations? And when we talk about, if anyone says to me, it's about work-life balance. Well, and maybe we need to stop pretending there should be any balance, because, this isn't a job you leave, job, role, whatever it is you leave. It's a life you live. Yes, this is what fostering is. It's a life you live. You don't finish work as a foster carer. You go to bed and you're still at work. You're there heightened. And when you know that a child is struggling, you are awake at the sound of a door, or the sound of a creaky floorboard. You are awake. Are they absconding? Are they going to hurt themselves? Where did I put the paracetamol? You're still at work. So instead of asking carers to balance it better, for us to create a work-life balance, to get some scented candles and sit in the bath for
crafting afternoon.
Crafting. Instead of asking us to do that, maybe we should be asking the system how it can hold more of the weight for us, because I'm sure that's what it should be doing.
Absolutely agree, and probably leads us on to our next thing. But I'd like to say as well, in the middle of all this, because there'll be people listening to this who, and there's a usual criticisms of, oh, well, I just don't know why you all do the job if you don't like it this much. I hate it when people say that, because if you said that to all the social workers, teachers, nurses, you just wouldn't turn around and go, oh, stop whinging or leave. You don't have to do it, because we do want to do it, and because also we do it willingly, and we do it with passion and love, because we do it for the children. And all the carers out there won't stop doing this because of the children. That's the thing that keeps them in there. It's certainly not the working conditions, the money, or anything like that, or it shouldn't be. So I'd like to say that we do this willingly. What we're saying is, please, can you do it better with us? That's what we're saying. We're saying, everybody listen, do this better with us. And we can improve outcomes. We can give the children the stability they need. We can maintain placements, stable placements. Sorry, placements. We know everyone likes that word. It's very difficult. Maintain stable, loving families and homes. So that directly goes into the next one. And we've only got 5 minutes left, so we're probably going to leave it after this one. And we've got several things that we can go on to next week, and I'll give you a taster of that at the end here. Maybe the last thing we end on here is lack of sufficient respite breaks, holidays.
Yes, because and I think one of the reasons that is there's a lack of foster carers to give the respite breaks to.
And why is that? Because it's not a legal duty.
Yeah.
Sadly, that it's money and it's not a legal duty. So what they do is they turn it back on the carer and shame them. Or they say you have to be part of a Mockingbird hub. I had two people write into me this week asking me if they had to legally be part of a Mockingbird hub. If they had to legally, they've been told that legally they have to be part of the Mockingbird hub.
There's a mental health violation right there, isn't it?
Wow. They didn't want to be, it wasn't their bag, it wasn't what they wanted to do, but they wanted a break. They were told that if they want a break, and then they were told even more than that the following, they had to be a part of a Mockingbird hub. So
we need to watch that, because you can't throw words legally around when it's not true.
No, one said legally and the other one said that they were told they could only have a break or respite if they were part of a Mockingbird hub. So
outrageous.
And bearing in mind that's only 4% of the population anyway. The government are throwing a bit more money at it, but it won't grow it any. No. Resource heavy, expensive. Anyway, so with respite and breaks, what they do is they have no legal duty to give foster carers holidays or breaks. Okay, so no legal duty. So they've never created the sufficiency to provide those breaks because they don't have to. It's as simple as that. And if they haven't got enough carers, and that's their fault, not the fault of the carers. Now, many carers organise their own respite. Many would have, they say, oh, you've got to have an extended family and we assessed you like that. So why would extended family use up their own holiday entitlement by looking after the corporate parents' children for nothing?
Yeah, I think they're a bit.
They take leave for nothing. Why? They're
a bit naive, aren't they? And I just want to say that if you're a foster carer and you're listening to us and you're thinking, yeah, that's exactly it. You've just described all the mental health issues I didn't even know I had. I didn't know, or I am aware of. Please hear this. You're not too sensitive. You are not failing. You're responding exactly as a human being would when asked to carry this much. This is not normal, what we're asked to carry. And if you're a professional listening, just imagine doing your role, your job, because you've been told you got a job, unlike us, but never getting to leave it. That's the starting point, my friends, for understanding foster carers' mental health. There's your big difference.
Yeah, huge difference.
Never leave.
No weekends. They can't have any holidays, nothing. They have to do their job all that time as well. Yeah, you're right. And just so we'll end there to try and keep to our time scale. Next week, we will be finishing off this section, looking at the impact of allegations, the system, neurodiversity, job insecurity on our mental health. And then we will be going on to the next section. I think it's probably going to be over 3, this one, about what can we do. And also we're going to hear from more foster carers sending in
fantastic
things. And I will say that I did a post on mental health on my Facebook page this week, and it got 55,000 views.
That tells you something.
It got hundreds and hundreds of likes and comments. It was huge. And yes, that tells you a lot, doesn't it? And most of them saying the same, very, very similar things. So, gosh, did we actually do that? We did.
We did it. And to my fellow foster carers, we love you dearly. Please look after your mental health. You are not failing. You are not weak. You're just fantastic. What's failing us is the lack of support.
Yeah, and I'm going to put a plug in here for FosterWiki simply because we set it up for this reason, that as far as your mental health is concerned and people to speak to, independent, confidential conversations, we're here. So join FosterWiki and know that you can come to us because we understand. So it's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from me. You take care. Have a good week.
And we'll see you next week. Okay, bye.
Bye.